Oh man, it's episode 87 plus 1 of Radio Free Innsmouth. Told you this is going to be a special episode, special week, guys, because of the meme number there. So this week we are going to be covering the new Twice mini album that just came out. It's called Feel Special, and I think it really helps move their sound forward, particularly the song Love Foolish. This song, of course, is about the dichotomy between love and hate that happens in any relationship of significant passion. I think it's interesting that Chaeyoung has been given this more breathy sort of spoken word part. Slightly different than the stuff she normally does. Usually she was the more aggressive of the two rappers in the band, but in this case they have Dayoon picking up the slack with the more aggressive sections, and then Chaeyoung does the more pensive type stuff. Possible artistic maturity seems to head in line with the aesthetics of the video for the title track off of the EP, which are very Blade Runner-esque, particularly in Santa's outfit and some of the furniture that Jonghyun is lounging around on.
Got him! Got him!
I bet you thought I was really gonna do it, too. I fucking tricked you guys. What do you think of that?
The goal here is for you to die. How that happens, I really don't care.
Oof, oh, a little bit of anger there. All right. But no, the inculcation into the jihanic death cult is best done in a more subtle manner. That was just a little Easter egg for a certain special little guy out there. Might have been looking forward to something like that. There might be more of it later on if it gets a positive response, but as we all know, this is episode 87 plus 1, which is a very important number because 1988 was the year the last good Metallica album came out. But I'm sure you guys are looking forward to whatever happens in episode 80. But no, this is in fact episode 88, and you probably guessed what it's going to be about, either from the intro or from looking at the thumbnail for this video, which I'm sure is astounding, depending on which medium you choose to listen to or view this particular bit of musical autism. That's right, we're covering Burzum, but not the kind of Burzum that people normally talk about. I mean, I don't feel like there's anything I can say about Philosophem or Hevis Lycetaros that hasn't already been said by other minds, both wiser and far dumber than mine. Rather, we are going to be covering his 3 post-prison albums, the ones he did right after he got out. See, before he went back to just making sort of like folky ambient music, he put out some more black metal stuff, and I feel like these records might have done a bit of a disservice given the fact that they're associated with the Burzum name. People expected a rote continuation of the development from Hevis Lycetaros to Philosophem, and that's not what you get. I gotta wonder if somebody else had put these albums out, or if he'd put them out under a pseudonym, would they have been bigger or smaller than they actually were? Would they have been reviewed in a more honest manner? Would they have been more influential on the black metal scene nowadays? Because I gotta say, a lot of people out there are talking shit on these albums. These 3 albums, that of course being Bellus, Fallen, and Umskiptar, because they were expecting something else from Burzum, or because they're people that were made aware of Burzum later on through political means rather than being authentic fans of the music. So they don't really know how to take these surprisingly innovative albums for a man that's like well into his 40s at this point when he's putting them out. He's just kind of doing his own thing. He's ignored pretty much all of the trends of modern black metal, some of which were started by himself inadvertently. He's doing his own sort of thing. 3 very unorthodox and strange albums. The first one, Bellus, named after a more archaic form of the god Balder, who has been a major figure from Burzum pretty much from the get-go, at least from the Dowdy Balder's synth album that he did in prison. And if you've read any of Varg's books, you know how important the Balder Bellis figure is in his personal mythology. But this first one was probably the closest thing to old Burzum out of the three. As with all Burzum albums, all the instrumentation is done by Varg himself, apart from the bass on that Oscar EP way back when. So here he's got a very droning tremolo note, and the lead melody in this song, at least in that intro, is from the bass, which is very rubber bandy and punchy in sync with the drums. It presaged what the drums are going to do, and then it linked in with them in an almost mechanical manner as more melodic layers are brought in to the point where the guitars start to take over the composition. But it's still very droning, very much built around hitting those minor bar chords with that very fast tremolo strum in a rather repetitive and meditative manner. Like I said, that's pretty much Philosophem 101. This is the closest thing you're going to hear to old Burzum, is moments like this on the Bellis album. But even later on in this song, he gets into some interesting and rather uncharted territory if we do a little bit of
FASTFORWARD.
So really heavy, more power chord riffs, droning out that same sort of mournful sound. But then we start bringing in these melodic layers, and we also utilize the right channel guitar doing sort of like a pedal drone note. And you can feel with the way that the drums are building up that this is building towards something very rhapsodic in nature. Sort of a spiritual awakening, which has always been the major strength of Burzum's music. It has a lot of soul to it, to borrow a bit of a Negroism. And this absolutely beautiful tremolo-picked melody emerges from the ashes of years of inactivity on Varg's part in the musical sphere. This particular little melody right there, that's maybe one of the best things he's ever done, if you ask me. So even with that album, you can tell with like how bright and ringing the guitars are, how not very dark at all, more sunny, like the album cover itself, the light coming down through the trees. You can tell that he's going into some new and interesting directions for his sound, which came to fruit on what I consider to be the best of these sort of comeback albums, that being Fallen, which was very avant-garde, not just for Burzum, but for black metal as a whole. Left channel riff is downright progressive and almost sort of dissonant death metal-y, but also very meditative. And from the right channel, we get this arpeggiated melodic figure. Normally, these two riffs would be very nonsensical on their own, but as they are interlocked together with the drum and bass track, it sort of irons itself out, which seems to represent Varg's philosophy of taking various supposedly contradictory strains of thought and working them together to create something new, like doing these weird whispery black metal screams with clean vocals, which are actually very well done. I like this kind of stuff a lot, and he did it really well on this album. I haven't heard anybody else even really work in this sort of realm, in black metal or otherwise. It's very unique, which has always been a hallmark of Burzum, and why there's plenty of imitators, but no one really grasps the greatness of it. Most of the good stuff that came out of post-Burzum black metal was people taking isolated pieces of Burzum and doing new stuff with them, whereas all of the bands that tried to straight up imitate Burzum pretty much failed. Like, is anybody gonna listen to a fucking Sturband album? Jesus Christ.
I'm gonna slide it right in. That's what she said. She says, yeah, put a dick in me. Yeah, that's what she said.
And finally we come to Skiptar, the least accessible of these comeback Burzum albums. The percussive stuff from Fallen has come back even harder and stranger with this almost nonsensical noise riff being harassed by these melodic sort of trill notes. Not even a lot of tremolo picking in this part. Could almost be a Gorguts riff, but it's being done by Varg, of all people. He has a mastery of picking out chords on the guitar that a lot of people don't really notice. He knows his way around his instruments better than is given credit for, and it lets him come up with interesting new things like this. The same screaming and singing at the same time, with these hanging chords just sort of drifting in space rather lazily. He also goes back to the roots of Norwegian classical music, which was heavily piano-focused, not only with Edvard Grieg, but also with Geir Tveit. Norwegian classical piano music usually was very sparse like this. And you gotta wonder if his new way of playing these more percussive chords and letting them ring out was not influenced by the piano rather than the guitar. Sort of thing where he hits a note with what would be, his left hand on the piano if he was playing the same song, and then the right hand is doing these more cyclical melodies. It's very reminiscent of a lot of Norwegian piano music and also Russian piano music, which was a major influence on Varg in his early years if you've read any interviews with him. But he managed to dig himself out of that minimalist hole with these downright triumphant melodic riffs. The ending portion of this album is also very forward-thinking and downright strange. It almost leaves black metal behind entirely in favor of some sort of a neo-folk skaldic style, which is simultaneously very quiet and subdued, but also very harsh and desperate. He retells tales of yore in a new philosophical manner. These parts of the album actually turned me off it when I originally got it. This wasn't really one of my favorites, but I've since grown to appreciate them. He's doing some new stuff, making his voice into almost what might be a guitar melody where he'd play this in a more black metal style, and then using those very percussive, piano-esque chords. And also these albums utilize a lot more bass, which I always like as a former bassist myself before I decided to switch to guitar in my early teen years, figuring I would get laid more easily. But that about does it for this particular era of Burzum. There was a lot of buzz around these albums right when they came out, and after they came out, nobody really talked about them that much, but I think there is a lot that other black metal composers could take from them, much in the way that people took a lot from older Burzum albums and did new and interesting things with them. There's a lot of really cool ideas going on in these 3 compact disc audio systems. So hopefully other composers besides just me will pick up on that and do some cool new stuff. I'll see you next week with episode 89.
Samael, I call you.